The National Guard. Start with the thing most rankings get wrong. The Guard is not a branch. The Army National Guard is a reserve component of the Army. The Air National Guard is a reserve component of the Air Force, and every Guardsman holds two memberships at once, one to a state, one to the federal government. That split is the whole story. On an ordinary day, the Guard answers to a governor under a section of law called Title 32. Floods, fires, riots, storms. The president can pull them into federal service under Title 10, and then they deploy like anybody else. Guard units fought full combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Air Guard squadrons fly the same fighters as the active Air Force. So why last? Because fear runs on warning. A state quick reaction force can be moving in hours, but a real federal call-up is the opposite of quiet. Governors announce it. The buildup runs on television for days before the heavy equipment moves. An abysmal buildup hands an enemy time to react, which is exactly what a planner is not afraid of. Then there's the arithmetic. Roughly 328,000 in the Army Guard, about 105,000 in the Air Guard, most of them part-time, back at a civilian job on Monday morning. They are older than the country they serve. The Guard traces its founding to militia regiments organized in Massachusetts in 1636, more than a century before the Declaration of Independence. But one service does the exact reverse. It arrives with no announcement at all, and if it arrives for you, you are already under arrest. The Coast Guard. About 43,000 people on active duty. It is a full-armed service and the only one that does not sit inside the Department of Defense. In peacetime, it runs under Homeland Security. In war, it can be handed to the Navy, which is not a technicality. Coast Guardsmen drove landing craft onto the beaches at Normandy and ran river patrols in Vietnam. But the thing that makes them feared today is not combat, it is law enforcement authority. An Army unit cannot pull your boat over. A Marine cannot arrest you. A Coast Guardsman can stop you, board you, search you, and put you in handcuffs in international water, holding a badge and a military rank at the same time. Then there's how they enforce it. In the 1990s, smugglers started running go-fasts. Overloaded speedboats doing 60 or 70 miles an hour, faster than any cutter afloat. By the Coast Guard's own accounting, they had roughly a 1 in 10 chance of stopping one, so they armed the helicopters. First, a burst of machine gun fire across the bow. If the boat keeps running, a marksman puts rounds from a .50 caliber precision rifle into the outboard engines, one engine at a time until it stops. In the trial that proved the tactic, the Coast Guard went 6 for 6, and that is exactly the ceiling. The whole system is built to stop a boat, not a country. The Coast Guard can end a smuggler's career. It cannot threaten a government. The next service has never arrested anyone and has never fired a shot at a human being. And the most precise weapons in the rest of this video would not find their targets without it, the Space Force. 10,000 Guardians, that is the entire service. Smaller than a single Army division, smaller than the Air Force by a factor of 30, and the newest branch on the list stood up in December of 2019. No Guardian is ever going to kick your door. That is not a weakness in this ranking. It is the reason the ranking works at all. The Space Force runs the Global Positioning System, around 31 satellites in medium orbit. Nearly every satellite-guided weapon dropped in the last 3 decades found its target using a timing signal from that constellation. It also runs the missile warning satellites, which watch the surface of the Earth in infrared from 22,000 miles up and catch a launch by the heat of the rocket plume in seconds. Take that away and the American military does not stop working. It gets stupid. Satellite-guided bombs drift. Ships lose position. Nobody sees the launch coming. Here is the ceiling, and it is a hard one. The Space Force cannot take ground. It cannot sink a ship, hold a city, or make anyone surrender. Everything it does makes somebody else's weapon better, and it owns no weapon of its own. The Navy. 2 navies live inside this one, and they frighten people in opposite directions. The first is the one you can see. 11 aircraft carriers, each a moving airfield with about 5,000 people on board, parked off a coastline so that everybody knows exactly what is sitting there. The second one is the Point, 14 Ohio-class submarines. Each carries 20 Trident missiles, and between them, they hold roughly half of America's deployed strategic nuclear warheads. A patrol runs about 70 days. For all 70 of those days, no adversary knows where that boat is, and that is not a side effect. It is the design requirement. The thing exists so that it can never be found, so that it never has to be used. So the fear is not that the Navy is coming, it is that a piece of it may already be close, and there is no way to check. Speed is not the ceiling either, whatever people assume. A forward-deployed destroyer already on station can put Tomahawks in the air in minutes. The ceiling is geography. Everything the Navy threatens has to sit within reach of water. Move the target far enough inland, and a fleet that took weeks to assemble is looking at a map it cannot touch. The next branch does not move anything into position at all. It puts a weapon on the far side of the planet from a base in the middle of America and is home in time for dinner the day after tomorrow. The Air Force. 400 Minutemen. 3 missiles sit in hardened silos across Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. Each has carried a single warhead since 2014. Time from launch to a target on the other side of the world, about 30 minutes. That is the part that never moves. The part that moves is worse. 19 B-2 bombers exist. 21 were built, 1 crashed in Guam in 2008, and the Air Force wrote off a fire-damaged airframe rather than pay to repair it. They are the only aircraft on Earth that can carry the 30,000-pound bunker buster, and in June of 2025, 7 of them showed what that means. They took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, 18 hours outbound, refueling in the air the whole way, while a second group flew the opposite direction across the Pacific as a decoy. They put 14 of those bombs into hardened underground sites in Iran, turned around, and landed back in Missouri about 36 hours after leaving. No forward base. No host country, no warning. And every airman already knows the ceiling. You cannot occupy anything from the air. Air power settles who owns the sky, and it can flatten whatever is under it. It has never once finished a war by itself. For that, somebody has to walk in and stay, which is the entire purpose of the next branch and why it is the largest thing on this list by a wide margin. The Army, 458,000 soldiers on active duty, add 328,000 in the Army National Guard and roughly 172,000 in the Army Reserve, and one branch accounts for close to 1 million people. Size is why it is second. Size is not why it is feared. The Army is feared because it is the only instrument that makes a result permanent. Air power destroys a thing. A carrier threatens a thing. The Army stands on it afterward and refuses to leave, and that has always been the only version of winning that holds. It is also faster than its size suggests. The 82nd Airborne Division holds the nation's immediate response force, a battalion kept on alert to jump anywhere in the world from a standing start inside 18 hours. No notice. No permission from a neighboring country because they are not landing on a runway. They are landing next to one, but that is the alert clock, not the war clock. Those paratroopers need heavy airlift to arrive, and their job once they are down is usually to take an airfield so that heavier forces can land behind them. Everything that follows needs a port, a runway, and months of buildup, and all of it shows on satellite the entire time. Which leaves one force that needs none of it because the decision to send it was made long before anything happened. The Marine Corps. About 172,000 Marines. One of the smallest services in the Department of Defense, and the answer this whole video has been walking toward. The entry price is real, so start there. Marine recruit training runs 13 weeks, the longest in the American military, and it ends with the Crucible. 54 hours. Around 8 hours of sleep across the entire event, 2.5 rations, and roughly 40 miles on foot. Nobody is called a Marine until that is finished. But toughness is not why the Corps sits at the top of this list. Neither is reputation. It is a formation called a Marine Expeditionary Unit. 2,200 Marines with their own aircraft, their own artillery, and their own supply chain, all under a single colonel, loaded onto amphibious ships and stocked to operate alone for 15 days. At least 2 of them are forward deployed somewhere in the world at any given moment, which means the sequence every other branch has to run through, decide, mobilize, ask a country for basing, fly in, build up has already happened months ago, quietly. On water that belongs to nobody, that is the ranking in one sentence. Number 7 waits for a governor. Number 1 is already parked off your coast, and the first anyone hears about it is the moment it stops being off your coast. So the order was never about who would win a fight between them. They do not fight each other. They are one system, built so that each branch's ceiling is the next one's job, which is why it comes down to the clock. Number 7 waits for a signature. Number 1 was already at sea before anybody knew there was a problem. Now tell me where this is wrong. Pick a number and argue it. And if you served, say which branch and why yours should have moved. Next one runs the same measure inside a single branch. Every unit in the American military, ranked by how fast it can actually be standing somewhere,